when it comes
truthful and unapologetic.
there is no guarantee that even if you did what they want you to do, you would actually get those promises you're talking about. We've been there for, now the country has been moving on for 28 years. How about what happened before actually those stories came up? There wasn't much flowing in that sense that later on was stopped by those stories. So, but that's a different thing. Let me quickly speak to the two problems. The story of Rusesabagina, and in fact, it explains now at the beginning what happens with the countries and the relationships and so on. A big country like the United States dealing with Rwanda, a small country somewhere in the middle of Africa. What I was saying, when people just tell you what to do or want to tell you what to do for yourself, comes in this sense. That story of Paul Rusesabagina, the case is very clear. It has gone through the courts of law with the due process. The evidence, the facts about the case were presented in the open. The history of that is also clear. It has been told. Now, there's something wrong here that.
And it involved the European courts. Did it involve the European courts?
What?
With Paul, did it involve the European courts as well?
Okay. That would be another big problem if it involved the other courts outside of Rwanda. I'm talking about Rwanda in our legitimate right to do what we have to do for ourselves. But he's charged with other 20 people. In other words, there are 21. In fact, all of them found guilty on the basis of that evidence and facts presented before the court. The other 20 are not complaining because some of them admitted what they were involved in, and with Rusesabagina as even at one time their leader. Now, with this situation, somebody comes and says, no, this person is famous, you know, he's a celebrity. You have to, and he's a resident of the United States. So by that, you've got to release this person. And some of us have raised this question and say, okay, we let this one go free. How about the other 20 who have been in the same crime with him and have actually pointed to him as even having been their leader? That's one. So the second aspect to that is, what are we going to have to deal with here? There's a serious case here, but it will be nullified because somebody in the United States is saying so. Well, some people may find that normal. I don't. Rwandans don't. So we might find.
So is Blinken's advocacy and determination of him being wrongly detained helping his case or hurting his case?
I think from what I have said, you can conclude. Yes.
Oh.
Because we've made it clear there isn't anybody going to come from anywhere to bully us into something to do with our lives. and we accept it.
Just finally, is there an
Can maybe make an invasion and overrun the country, you can do that, but if we are going to be dealing with our problems in this manner, that the one associated with somebody who is powerful will not be held accountable, but the rest will be held accountable. I don't understand it for anything. But let me quickly go to the Congo problem. For Sabajina's case, I think it's clearly where it is. People can keep talking about it. I'm not interested in going into a lot of other details here and there, but those also are happening. But what I wanted to tell you was the general frame of mind around this case and how it operates. It doesn't matter, because we can't just make one person so important that they want to be held accountable. And by the way, this is even when the person we are talking about himself provided evidence against himself by saying what he said, and that is on camera, that can't be disputed. And the responsibility of deaths of people, of Rwandans, if anyone thinks it can just be wished away because of some things, well, we'll see how to deal with that.
Did you like or hate what you heard?
Hello. Hi, Abby. Oh, you're muted there from what I see. Hello, chat.
Hi. We've been like talking shit already. So Tosmit, you good. We've had a long day. You know that already, Michael.
I mean, it's been a long day for both of us.
It's been a long day for both of us. So yeah. But we're good. We're here. And Jacqueline, I got on a shirt for you. My sweet baby. Let me just show you. You told me to wear it.
Oh, here we go. All right, there we go. Hi, Ryan. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Oh, well, yeah, perfect. We can hear you, but you're a little bit distant. Maybe it sounds a bit like echoey, like from the room, the acoustics in the room. Could you maybe get closer to the mic, or?
When I'm talking through headphones, so I put my phone up to my mouth. I'm not sure if the microphone's in my ears or is in my headset or not. Let me just go outside.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
So while he's doing that, I just want to acknowledge Bad Cookies. You guys had a wonderful show yesterday. The 10 Rabbit podcast with Mastermind and Bad Cookies. I'm very proud of you. And so happy to work with you. So that's all I wanted to say.
So I think, is this technically our first interview? I don't think we've actually interviewed anyone to my
Jasmine Sherman.
Jasmine, yes. Yes, no, thank you. I forgot that. So, but yes, this was
you're very welcome.
supposed to be our first interview, I guess you could say. We had this in planning in the works a little bit for a while, but then, people with different schedules and all these other things that come up in the meantime. So happy to be able to talk about the Congo finally, and Rwanda. So we'll just have to see once Ryan can address these audio issues. You guys in the chat can let us know if it sounds good for you guys. We might have to.
Is it hearing good now?
Yeah, so that sounds. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I was just doing a test. Sorry to interrupt.
No, yeah, that sounds much better. So good. Yeah. How about if the chat can let us know if that's good? Because at worst, you'll just have to ride your volume at home.
Yeah, it's just I'm using kind of an old phone, which is the only one I have with. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna need 2 minutes. My dog just ran up to me. They got out. I'm
No.
really, really
Take
sorry
your
about
time.
this.
Oh, that's
No,
okay,
take
sure.
no, take your time.
In the meantime,
yeah,
we can
when-
maybe cover that article you shared with us until you're ready. So, but we usually go for like 2 hours, so we got plenty of time.
I got a dog story.
Oh, sure.
It's not a good one.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
It's not a good one at all.
Hmm.
Oh, did you just do that, Tasman?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Just trying it out.
You should just figuring it out, trying to learn some stuff. I got mauled by a pit bull.
Oh, damn.
That's my dog. I love dogs. I do. I showed you. Let me show you my dogs. They're not my dogs, but they are dogs that. I mean, you saw them. I dog sitted. Remember? Remember I showed you my dogs.
Yeah. You sent me a few pictures. Yeah.
Look at that face.
Yeah.
How could you not love that face?
But that's the dog that mauled you?
No.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's my brother's dogs.
Yeah, because that's not a pit bull. From
A
what
pit bull mauled me when I was in my late 20s. And then here's my other dog. He's a toy Yorkie. See the big one? The big one always in the mix. And then the little one.
He's crashing the picture. Photo bombing,
Yeah,
what they call it. Yeah.
Photo bombing. I almost lost my leg.
Oh,
I was
damn.
in the hospital for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Most people wouldn't trust dogs after that.
It took me some years. I had to go to therapy. It was very traumatizing. But I know it was just that specific dog. It's not all dogs or whatever. But I had to take time to get over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, just so you guys know, I'm back.
Oh, cool. Yeah, good. That was just a little short story from Abby. We weren't trying to tell her life story. So.
And look at what Tasman says, and she still loves dogs. I do. I love them. They're so adorable. Sean's here. Hi, Sean.
Yeah,
Ryan.
I didn't get a chance to say hello to everybody so much.
Yep.
Hello.
Welcome, Ryan. We're so happy to have you here and to be a guest and to hear what you have to say about where you've been, what you've learned, and what you have to share. So I'll let you start, Michael, because he's your guest. So I'm going to let you guys go.
Yeah, I guess I didn't exactly have a first question like ready in mind, but I probably should have.
Well, not a question.
We had been talking earlier, but so we were kind of thinking, ask Ryan about what he'd like to share with us, and like this is a pseudonym name, by the way. We're clearly with the camera. We're just kind of trying to keep the journalist's responsibility of anonymity of the source here. So we just wanted to hear from the West over here. We don't really, as much as we would like to know, we can't really have much of an insight as we would like to have. So
I think we should start here with him explaining like who he is, where he lives, what places he lives.
So
He's
tell us a little bit about yourself.
So he could tell us, like when he's giving his perspective, where it comes from.
Yeah.
We should start there.
So Ryan, you want to tell us about? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'll just start. Yeah, I'm a Canadian, but it's I want to be kind of vague here because it is kind of risky to talk about like this specific issue. But so I had some connections in the NGO world, and I went and lived in like the Great Lakes region of Africa for like off and on for the last few years, which is basically like Uganda, like Rwanda, Burundi, and Congo. But I was mostly around Rwanda, like a bit in Uganda, and like on the border of Congo. Like there's a lot of people who work in NGOs who they work in the Eastern Congo, but they live in Rwanda because it's a lot safer and it's a lot less chaotic. But so yeah, I was in this world for a while, and I noticed like while I was there, there's actually a war that started. I mean, it technically like Congo's been at war since independence, but it was there's a rebellion that started. I'll like get to everything in a more organized manner after, but just the basics of it is there is a rebellion in eastern Congo that was mainly ethnic Rwandese who they I well I'll get into that a bit later, but mostly like ethnic Rwandese, mainly Tutsi Rwandese who have like yeah, they've been I keep like getting myself into a deeper thought loop,
It's
but
okay.
yeah,
It's a
but
bit
yes,
maybe a bit nervousness, but sure. Take your time, right?
it's like so like in Rwanda, like they the talk of ethnicity is really hush hush. It's not something that you really talk about openly, but everyone kind of knows that in the government, because of all the people who originally made up the ruling party, there's a lot of Tutsi leadership. So there's kind of a lot of common ground between the M23 rebellion and the Rwandese, and it's a conflict that runs pretty deep. But yeah, so I was there and I saw it really escalate, and I saw like no one in the West even had a clue what was going on, and it's like pretty much it's like Ukraine before the Russian invasion, but an African version. If I had to sum it up just very
Mm.
quickly.
Yeah,
So
this kind of thing is helpful because I'm wondering if it's appropriate to try and apply that kind of like a lesson from another region to this kind of area. But if someone who's more firsthand experience in the areas having this kind of an impression, then maybe it's not so inaccurate to describe things in this way.
But it's because, like in Ukraine, the Donetsk People's Republic and Lugansk People's Republic, like the Donbass, uh, fought a war to separate for 8 years, and in Eastern Congo, like there's provinces. Mainly the fighting is in North Kivu, and when you go in a bit like closer, the territories of Rutshuru and Masisi, which are where the M23 rebellion is like where they mainly are. That is mainly like most people who live there are ethnic Banyarwanda or Rwandese. So it's very similar in that it's kind of it's a conflict due to like ethnic diasporas being across the border, and it getting a lot more complicated from there. Like also like it isn't completely like parallel to the Ukraine conflict, but just on a very basic level, um, yeah, like I've one of the things that made me kind of want to do this is I heard a bunch of Americans talk about the Russia-Ukraine war because no one had a clue what was actually going on in the West either at that time, but so like they would go into how sorry I lost my thought there, but they would go into how like this conflict it's very like it goes back generations. It's not something you can really sum up very quickly, but it's so I'm kind of losing my thought here. I'm trying to like sum everything.
It's okay. It's okay. Take your time because to be thrown in, to be thrown in the mix on live TV is not, for the faint of heart. So I'm just going to jump in for a second because you mentioned it just didn't happen overnight. And the way it is introduced to us as Americans is like breaking news. It happened yesterday. When really this stuff has been decades in the works, and there's like so much more to be understood and explained so we could actually get a really good uh, understanding of what is happening in the moment, because most likely America has some shit to do with it, and now they're like throwing rocks and not showing their hands.
Yeah. Well.
So
yeah, and then it's always difficult to try and explain the situation going on today without trying to reference to historical information. But then once you try to go back to the historical information. It gets difficult to not get stuck just talking about history and to be able to bring it up, make the history relevant to what we're trying to talk about today. So I feel it was one thing that you mentioned, somewhat timely. I could maybe share my screen here. You sent an article about the UN. There's a UN report implicating Uganda in supporting Congo's M23 rebels as well as Rwanda. So do you have anything maybe you could share about that?
So I'll just give like a brief rundown of the history. Like I won't go too much into like the ancient past, but like to start, like I'll just say like Rwanda and Congo are both kingdoms that predate colonization. Like Congo is mostly in the west, like right up where the Congo River goes into the Atlantic Ocean, and they were a pretty advanced civilization that had cities just as big as Europe when the Portuguese arrived, and yeah, they were a big player in the slave trade. Like a huge portion of the slaves that ended up in North America and South America, or the Americas, come from Congo or Nigeria. But anyway, so yeah, there's Congo. They didn't have the massive territory they had today. And then there is Rwanda, which is like there's a few different kingdoms around where Rwanda is, but Rwanda was one of the dominant kingdoms. And then I'll just skip forward a bit. In 1884, the Germans, well, not just the Germans, but like the Europeans had the Berlin Conference, and they, I think most people know the story. Like they partitioned up the continent towards different colonial powers, and Rwanda ended up getting partitioned because Rwanda was originally colonized by the Germans, and they lost territories to what would become the Belgian Congo, and to Uganda. So that comes into play a bit later with what's going on like now, because like before, you know, some Congolese will really fight you on this, but before Rutshuru and Masisi were part of the Rwandan kingdom. And then
Leopold.
Yeah, that's where I was about to mention. So yeah, like so yeah, this is probably the most famous like European atrocities in Africa. But yeah, Leopold goes and like
Because
pretty soon after.
I mean, oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. May I just say this one thing? Because like the Holocaust is the biggest atrocity that happened on film, but it's not the biggest atrocity that ever happened. Leopold was like 1,000 times worse than Hitler could ever be. That's my humble opinion.
I mean, like, yeah, I don't want to get into like European history now, but yeah, like it's a fair point, because yeah, Leopold went in. They ended up like I need to learn more about the early history of Congo, but yeah, basically they sent in their goons to go and
they were
like
cutting people's arms off.
Yeah, because it was around the time where cars, different machinery started to use a lot more rubber, so they were trying to harvest rubber, and if people didn't make up the quotas, they would just cut off their hands. They slaughtered whole villages. Yeah, the Belgians were some of the most ruthless colonizers in Africa. They
have
barbaric.
yet to acknowledge the genocide, the responsibility for genocide in a legal, official fashion, from what I can tell. Like every single colonizer. So I don't know exactly about the Dutch or the Belgians, but I'm just kind of, I would imagine.
Oh, they were brutal.
Yeah, and yet they have not acknowledged it. So yeah.
Honestly, I don't think they've ever taken responsibility. I could be wrong. I don't want to say this like it's a fact, but I don't think they ever did take responsibility. Like
the
up until up until recently, like Leopold was he was kind of a popular figure in Belgium, but yeah, so like that just kind of lays the groundwork for how the Belgians really operated in the region. But it was like, it wasn't actually the Belgians well, it was the Belgians, but it wasn't actually the Belgians who committed all like these atrocities. It was like Congo wasn't a Belgian colony. It was like the property of the state, of the king. So it was like his own private landmass in the middle of Africa. And so he could be as brutal as he want. And even back then, there was actually a bunch of campaigns to have it taken away from him, which I think it was, I could be wrong. I think it was in like 1909, they took it away and made it a Belgian colony. And they're still pretty brutal, but like not as bad. But after World War I, they ended up receiving Burundi and Rwanda from the Germans, and they formed the colony of Rwanda, Urundi. I can't pronounce it very good, but so they, that's when like the Germans, they were pretty hands off in Rwanda, but when the Belgians came in, they really started to get involved in the local ethnic politics, which Rwanda up until this point was it was a pretty centralized kingdom ruled by Tutsi kings who were cattle herders, and there's like lots of debate over like their origins, but so they were cattle herders, and the Hutu population were more Bantu farmers, like just farming crops. And then there was also the pygmies, the Batwa. Like, I know you're not supposed to say pygmy anymore, but yeah, there's the Batwa too, who are about 1% of the population. But so Hutus were about 80% of the population, Tutsi about 15, and they went in and they started giving everyone ethnic identity cards, and so on everyone's card it would say whether you were a Hutu, a Tutsi, or a Twa. And originally they supported the Tutsi because they're nobility, and also because of the hypothesis, which would lay the groundwork of a lot of the really racist or like really extreme ideology that would be spread throughout the region, which is like the French had the Hamitic hypothesis, which is basically, to sum it up, is that everything in sub-Saharan Africa of value came from Caucasians or people descended of Caucasians. So they would kind of say anyone who has formed a more centralized kingdom, it must be because they're more white. So that kind of lays the groundwork for how they treated the Rwandan colony. Well, and Burundi, they have a very similar history, but so what ended up happening is that in the early Cold War, a bunch of African colonies started getting their independence. So in between 1959 and 1961, both Congo, Burundi, and Rwanda all gained their independence. And in I think we all it's a very famous story. In Congo, they had Patrice Lumumba, who was like a very unifying figure, and then they had him overthrown, and they gave him to some separatists then they had him killed basically, and they put in Mobutu Sese Seko, who would end up ruling with an iron fist for the next 30 years, give or take a few years. But so he, but like just back to like when the Belgians left Congo, they really sowed the seeds of division, and the country's never really recovered. I mean, Congo, yeah, it was a real kingdom, but they never had these massive borders that they do today. So
and then just after the Belgians left, it was like the 1960s. So as soon as they left, there was the Cold War between Russia and the States, or the USSR and the States, and so they were kind of immediately turned into a football to be tossed around between them, you know.
And may I just say, so Ryan, what we do is like we're constantly looking at the chat because our friends come and they go, and so every now and again I'm gonna stop you and just acknowledge people in the chat, because we have a new person, Future Homestead. I don't ever remember them being here.
She's a friend of mine from a Canadian friend.
Oh, okay, and I just want to say welcome.
Good to see you.
Good to see you here.
Yeah, hey, future
Ro-
Homestead. Don't know if you want me to say your name, but
and then Rondo Ellsworth, he jumped in and he's like, "Are y'all talking about Leopold?" Yes, we were. But I just wanted to jump in for a second because you were talking about. Oh, and then Rondo also said the French are absolutely trifling in Africa. So I want to speak on that for a second because in the 1920s, that's when Maui was like the first country that said, "I don't want." Uh, I want my independence. I don't want to have anything to do with you, France. And France said, "Oh, well, shit, let me show you something." They toppled all the buildings. They burned the cattle. They burned the fields and said, let this be an example to any other French colonized country in Africa that wants their independence from us. We will fuck you up." That's basically what they said. And that's why to this day, at least 14 African countries still pay France a colonial tax in 2024.
Well, I'm not sure if now would be the right time to ask, but I was curious as to what, or have you heard what the opinions of the Rwandans might be and the Congolese about what's been happening in the Sahel region with Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso?
And BRICS.
what I've seen is that like a lot of Congolese seem to be really supportive. So do Rwandans, but like the Rwandese government actually has deals with these countries. The Congolese don't. I'll get to that a bit later, but the Congolese government is kind of a kleptocratic mess. It's and there's a lot of I like to call it like ideological schizophrenia going on, like things that just don't make sense. But
You mean
yeah,
like Shisekedi comparing Kagame to Hitler here? Let me just scroll up the top. Sorry.
yeah, but like also stuff like, I feel like a lot of Congolese influencers out there saying like, oh, Rwanda is like a puppet of the West, which like I'll get to later. They like the West did support Rwanda for a good number of years, but they also supported Congo. Like they have a weird revolving door of who they support. But so yeah, they'll say like, Rwanda's a puppet. They're looting us for the West. So let's go ask for France. Like let's go ask France and the U.S. for help. That's basically what's going on right now, and it's kind of a mess. But like you can't really understand though, like the whole region though, if you don't like go back to the Rwandan genocide, because what I was talking about before is like just to get on track, just so I can get the history out of the way. So in like the 1960s, Rwanda, Congo, like gained independence. In Congo, they put Mobutu Sese Seko in power, who ruled with an iron fist for 30 years and was like, at the time though, like I've met people, like Congolese people, who they really reminisce about that time because Congo at the time was called Zaire. They were actually very, very prominent in the region. They were the power in the region. So there's a lot of nostalgia for that. But in Rwanda, they like the first person who was put in was like someone who like they brought in the ideology of Hutu power. So in 1959, there's the Hutu revolution, and hundreds of thousands of Tutsi refugees fled the country, and they overthrew the monarchy. And I need better sources on this. I need to look into it more. But from like what I've heard, it's because like the Tutsi people who they educated were starting to have more socialist leanings, so they got very uncomfortable at that, and they so basically Rwanda became a victim of the Cold War, and in from 1959 to 1994, Rwanda was like a fascist state, like but the thing about Rwanda too is like for a country that's one culture and one language, they really like to divide themselves, which is probably why the government today has these different positions. But so like Then in 1973, Habyarimana, the guy who was shot down causing the Rwandan genocide, he took power, and he had a power base in a different part of in the north of the country, where the previous leader was in the south. But they brought together like what they call Hutu power ideology, which is very similar to the Bantu supremacism we see today, which I don't think it's a coincidence that shares so many similarities with Nazism. But yeah, basically, so during that time, Rwanda was still very agrarian, very underdeveloped, and they didn't really develop much. There's a crisis in like the 80s. Coffee prices really dropped, which is their main export. So the economy went into shambles, and just even back up a bit. Sorry, I know there's a lot, but
Oh, don't worry. Go ahead.
It's in Uganda. In Uganda in 1986, who's still the president of Uganda today, Yoweri Museveni, comes to power, and with the help of a bunch of Rwandan refugees because of sectarianism with the older socialist aligned government that was overthrown in Milton Obote. So a lot of these Rwandese refugees were fighting with the NRM, the National Resistance Movement that brought Museveni to power, and they formed such a powerful brick of the military. I've heard they're even 1/3 of the military, and the head of intelligence, who today is the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, was a huge influence in the country. And so these Rwandan refugees, they break off from the Ugandan military in 1990, and they invade Rwanda from the north. And it's right around as the Cold War is ending. And this is important to mention, is that it was mainly, it was a fight between English and French spheres of influence in Africa. So before, Rwanda was a Francophone country, but a lot of these refugees who learned English in Uganda came in. And there's a civil war for 4 years, which they tried to sign a peace agreement in 1993. And it was disrupted when the plane of Habyarimana, the president at the time, got shot down. And there's a lot of speculation on who shot down the plane. A lot of people blame the RPF and Kagame, or they blame the French, or the official narrative is that it was radicals within the government. But the ending was the same. The day after it happened, the genocide starts, and over the next 100 days, between 800,000 and 1 million people end up dying in a really brutal fashion. And
you're talking about the genocide gets kicked off by assassination of a president in an airplane, because that's eerily similar to the Iranian president who just got killed. I just wanted to say that. Okay, carry on.
Wait. Yeah, I don't know enough about what's going on there. Thank God there isn't carnage breaking out. But yeah, so it in Rwanda at the time in the Civil War, Uganda was a close American ally, and they were really getting more in bed with the British and Americans right after the Cold War. And then Rwanda was a French ally, a staunch French ally, and Mitterrand was a close friend of the old president.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was on mute, and I'm yelling.
You're gonna say something. Interrupt. Yeah.
One of our comrades asked, "Is this what Hotel Rwanda was about?" So
yeah, that will come up in a bit. Hotel Rwanda is about this. The guy who it's I've been to the hotel it's based on, but the guy today is not a popular figure in Rwanda. I'll get to that a bit later, because that kicks off the problems with the Americans. But yeah, that's what's about. There's other movies Sometimes in April, but it was just basically pure carnage while the RPF slowly took over the country. And towards the end, the French evacuated the old Rwandan government to Eastern Congo, which really kicked off like this 30 years of conflict, because the Rwandan Civil War never really ended. It just shifted into Congo. And so like the president Mobutu was still there. He let them in because he's a close friend of the old Rwandan president. And then a couple years later, there was because the Rwandan refugees had been fighting in various resistance movements for a long time. So they had been fighting with Che Guevara. So they had a link with another person who was fighting with Che Guevara when he was in Congo. Laurent Desire Kabila, who he was an opposition figure, and basically with American support, because they were tired of Mobutu, the Rwandese and the Ugandans invaded Congo and overthrew Mobutu. What happened after is like it's a kind of a long story, but long story short is Rwanda had too much influence in the state in the Congolese state after for a lot of people there's liking. So they got kicked out, and hostilities started again, which started a 5-year brutal war between Congo on one side, and at the time they had a lot more allies like Zimbabwe and Angola, to just name a couple. And then Rwanda and Uganda and Burundi all invaded. It ended kind of in a stalemate, and that kind of sets the stage for what's happening now, because the M23 movement actually came out of an old Tutsi militia in Congo that they had a peace deal that was signed on March 23rd, so that's why they're called M23, and they were supposed to be given a bunch of places in the military, and so I need to charge my phone, so sorry if I die, but
Okay.
yeah, so basically they yeah, so they reneged on this peace agreement, and it formed the M23 rebellion, which started in 2012, and at the time they quickly took the border city of Goma, which is under siege right now, but they were pushed out very rapidly because of yeah, they're pushed out. Sorry, I'm just plugging in my phone, but they're pushed out very rapidly because at the time Rwanda just didn't have the military strength, and like Rwanda, they especially didn't have the economic strength, and so Rwanda didn't support the rebellion at the time. They were quickly pushed out, and then they kind of went dormant for 10 years. And at the time too, in 2001, Laurent Kabila got shot by one of his child soldiers, and they put in his son, who ruled for like 16, 17 years, I think. And by the end, they held actually free elections after, which the current president, that's how he got in, but he didn't actually win the vote. I need to get better sources. I need to verify, but from what I've heard, is the Americans like went behind the scenes to make sure that he got in.
I was just about to ask, like, which one was the puppet?
They're almost all puppets, really. Like it's my phone's about to die. I might drop for a bit, but
right. Okay. Well, if your phone dies, maybe what is the most important question that we should be asking it right now?
I love that.
Okay.
Oh, you're cutting out a bit.
Uh-oh.
You want to try again there? Let's see if you're just cutting out.
While he's coming back to us, I just wanted to share this. Rondo, hey Rondo. So let me see if I'm sharing this properly. Rondo asked us to look up Sheikh Amadou Bamba Mbaku.
Yeah.
Which I did. and I wanted to share it, but I don't know why it's not showing. That's kind of weird. It's a weird day.
Yeah.
All around, it's kind of weird. Let me see. Nope. It's not. I don't know how to show
One of
it.
those days it
That's
feels like the
crazy.
universe is working against you a bit today.
I mean, I told you today, like my whole phone just stopped working for
Yeah.
like an hour.
You were telling me about your friend needed help, and then the car assistance guy that you pay for showed up without tools. to do your
Right?
job. Like,
Gosh, tell him.
That was insane.
It was insane, right? This dude showed up with no
Imagine
tools.
Imagine
Can
working.
you hear? Can you hear?
Look,
see if
imagine working as
Can,
a repairman and you receive a call of a job. You arrive at the job with no fucking tools.
no tools.
Yeah.
It's like it's three women, and we're supplying him with what you need, a tire iron? I got a tire iron. Oh, thank you. Well, why the hell you ain't got a tire iron? Oh, wait a minute. You don't have you can't fix this flat. I could not believe it. I was so angry, and we had to pay this man, and he did nothing. Okay, that was my rant.
Well,
Rondo said, "Where they do that at?"
I wish I could get paid for that kind of incompetence, right?
Exactly. I was just so angry, and I was so done with it today.
So I see your mic is muted there, Ryan. You want to see if I'll unmute it and see if your audio issues have been taken care of a bit?
What? Oh,
So I just needed to just talking. Like I came home. I'm back home at my parents' place. I'm just talking to them for a bit. But yeah, I'm back now.
All right, cool.
welcome back. So, before we start, I just want to answer this question. So Sean is asking, is the octopus murders about effing up sharks at a zoo? No, no, it's
It's
not.
America admitting shit they did years ago.
Yes.
Confirming what they did that was fucked up, all the crazy shit they did.
You know
And
how
still leaving you intrigued for more.
like how Pfizer during COVID wanted to close everything off for 75 years before they could actually talk about it. How the Catholic Church closes everything off for 75 years. So the people who did all the dirt already
Can't be
dead and gone,
prosecuted.
and then it all comes out. That's what the octopus murders is about.
It is
if that makes
amazing.
sense.
It's
If I'm-
amazing.
Well, I'll have to watch it now. It's been mentioned a few times. I'm curious.
Thank you, Sebastian.
It's something that if you guys like, the shows that you are creating a network to build, that is like.
Can you hear
that's
Toss?
strange.
Toss? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. You done?
Okay, so yeah.
Because I have this in my ear. I it's hard for me to hear.
So should we try and get back to the interview, and then we'll be able to.
Yep. The juicy bits that Ryan is spilling. The
Yeah,
juicy tea.
Did you
Come
maybe
on with it,
lost
Ryan.
your train of thought a bit? You know where you wanted to pick up again there, Ryan?
Yeah, I think the last question I had before everything cut out was, so who's the puppet? Which is a very, very good question. And see, like, pretty much every leader there has had to work with the West, like, in some capacity. Like, the ones who didn't got killed. So, like, Mobutu was there for 30 years, and then they had him. Like, once he outlived his usefulness, they got rid of him. The Americans were very, very friendly with Kagame for like about another 25, 30 years, and now they're kind of pulling away support because I've been reading a bunch of like foreign policy magazine, which when it comes to Africa, they just kind of admit their own strategy in these articles. And right now, the American strategy is going towards the bigger countries that are more have more resources that are along the coast. I mean, the problem is that a lot of these places are very, very dysfunctional. But so yeah, the Americans, they basically see Congo as a more important ally than the Rwandese. The problem is though, is that in the 25 years after the Cold War, they kind of established well, they really helped build the Rwandese and Ugandan militaries, where now pretty much no one can challenge them in the region. And it's a problem with American intelligence because you see, they look at everything just like as fact sheets and numbers. Like I was even reading another thing in foreign policy recently of them kind of admitting yeah, a lot of American policy advisors, they don't see all these reactions that are happening on the ground. Like in Kenya a couple of weeks ago, there's a huge protest against the IMF, and yeah, no one could really see it coming. But kind of back to who's the puppet is like a lot of these, a lot of the leaders you see there, especially the ones that have been there a while, a lot of them, they did do the West dirty work. So, in Rwanda and Uganda, they did invade Congo in 1996 with American support. See, the thing is today, though, is in 1999, they sent a UN force called MONUSCO. And they've been there ever since, and the Congolese want them out because they're notorious for human rights abuses and stealing resources. I'm not sure if I could say this word, but raping locals. And they just kind of got tired of them, especially after in Goma last year, I think it was in August, they killed dozens of people, at least 60, 65 people. That's a low estimate because they're protesting against the UN. And the Congolese government has asked them to leave. But my theory on this whole conflict is that the West, they don't really care who's winning or who's fighting. They just kind of want to see another conflict so that they can send in a UN peacekeeping contingent so that they can keep stealing minerals. Because
okay, may I just interject for a second? Because the UN, the United Nations, when they come, they look like a symbol of peace and they want to help, and they're really there to rope. I'm not going to say with the A, and steal the resources from the people. That's basically what they're doing. They've done it in Haiti. They've done it all across Africa. The UN is not they're not a friend.
Got much legitimacy, no, especially with what the Americans and Israelis are doing, and everyone's looking to the UN to act and to ensure some kind of justice takes place. And as the more that no justice occurs, and we're asking the UN to provide it, the less legitimacy they have. But apparently, people will just let them. They'll just believe in them forever. They'll never have to acknowledge that something needs to change, I guess.
It's kind of like how they believe in the Red Cross.
Yeah.
They don't do anything but steal too. I'm sorry, Ryan. I just wanted to jump in there and say that.
Yeah, no worries. I was just gonna add, actually the example that for a long time, growing up, I heard the example of how the UN failed has always been for 25 years now. It's been Rwanda, because there's a famous story. We learned about him a lot, because he comes from the same part of Canada I come from. The head of the UN in Rwanda at the time was a guy called Romeo Dallaire. And he's written a bunch of books about this, and yeah, basically he was asking for troops to help stop the carnage for months and months and months, and the UN just kept cutting support. So the Rwandese today, they don't really have much nice to say about the UN, and I don't think the Congolese do either. the one, like, there's a few things like I hear from pretty much everyone across the board. Like in Rwanda, pretty much everyone I talk to, no matter if they support the government or not, they don't want more violence after what happened. And in Congo, pretty much everyone hates the UN. Like the UN has been a real, like, it has not been a force for good in the region. And like, well, I was talking about the massacres before. And so, yeah, that's my whole real theory about the conflict is just they want to keep the UN there. Because I remember that, like, now people are using this as like a gotcha speech, but President Kagame of Rwanda gave a speech a couple years ago where he's saying, like, yeah, they're accusing us of stealing the minerals, but they don't stay here. Where do they go? They go to Dubai, they go to Tel Aviv, they go to Russia, they go to the US, they go to China. And he said, and if we refused, then the threat should be worse. And so,
And can I just stop you for 1 second, because I wanna make this point, because you're talking about a macro level of how resources are taken out of Africa and sent to Western countries. Now, on a micro level in America, resources are taken out of Black communities, and the dollars are spent way away from our community, and we just stay poor because we aren't circulating any wealth within our community. So it's the same concept. It's just at a higher
National
level.
and domestic, yeah, for sure.
I,
It's imperialism, you know.
it's affected like Black communities all over the world because I was talking about this with my Rwandan friend yesterday, and they're talking, like, he was talking about, yeah, all these Congolese, they talk a lot of shit about Rwanda, but a lot of the wealthy ones, they end up in Kigali spending money because they it's a safe place and it's a lot less chaotic. And so like a lot of that's the problem with a lot of the wealth in Congo is it just all leaves. Like the people on the ground who are benefiting, because there are a lot of Africans, like just like with the slave trade, there's a lot of Africans who are actually like still on the ground benefiting from this. But even those people, they go spend all their money in France, they go even spend in Rwanda, they go spend it in America. And that's probably why you see Rwanda developing as much as they are right now, because they have a very authoritarian government, but they've set up ways where you have, if you're a successful businessman, you have to give to what they call the Agaciro Fund. And it's basically like a national wealth fund. And they founded this after the last M23 rebellion, once sanctions started coming in, because they're like, we can't rely on donor aid. And that's like the story of Rwanda in the past like 5-10 years, is they've been slowly getting off of donor aid and actually building a self-sustaining economy. And I just find it a little interesting that we didn't hear about any of this stuff with Congo before this, when actually, like, you know, in the 90s, I don't want to go too deep into it, but there actually was like a lot of atrocities committed. And then we just hear about this in the last few years, right when Rwanda really started to butt heads with the American government. And like, they'll probably start butting heads with the UK government under Labour, because left, like liberals in the West really, really don't like Rwanda. Conservatives are fine, whatever. But
May I ask you a question? Because
sure.
like people are so hyper focused on the genocide in Gaza, as we should be, but there's a genocide happening in the Congo, and nobody gives a goddamn. You have any thoughts about why that is?
I mean, it's pretty simple. It's just, sorry to say this so nonchalantly, but like, people honestly don't give a fuck about Africans. Like, I'll just say it, like, because
Thank you. I'm glad you said it. I mean, I was thinking it. I was just trying to see what you were gonna say. People don't give a fuck about Black people. That's period.
Well,
blank.
sometimes we need to hear the quiet part out loud, so we appreciate that because it's not always a bad thing to hear it, right? It's not always a bad person saying the quiet part out loud, right? So
Mm-hmm.
If I'm being honest, like I've tried to talk about this conflict a lot with people, and just people weren't having it. People like weren't like didn't really know what was going on, and so like I've been kind of demoralized about this for a bit because we can see a lot of carnage. But now I'm at a point where honestly, I think it isn't the worst thing that Westerners aren't talking about this a lot, because a lot of Westerners, if you look at Ukraine, have like dog shit takes. So hopefully they just don't make it worse. But yeah, there's been a genocide going on in Congo. Well, like, okay, there's been multiple genocides or rounds of ethnic cleansing, and currently, see, the uncomfortable truth though is like the Congolese authorities today are really don't care either about what's going on, because they focus all their attention on M23, which I understand why, but then when you go a bit further north in Ituri province, there's been ethnic cleansing between the Lendu people and the Hema people, and it really it parallels the division between the Rwandese, the Hutus and the Tutsi, and it's been going on for about 30 years. Then
Long time.
Right. I'd say the worst part is I'm not sure when any of this is gonna end, because then you go like North Kivu, where it's because Congo has like $25 trillion worth of minerals underneath their soil, and like you can call them the green Saudi Arabia, because they have like all of the stuff we need for all this green technology. It all comes from Congo, or like 70% of it comes from Congo. So I'm just trying. Yeah,
And half of them don't have electricity. How the fuck is that possible?
I
How?
wish half of them had electricity.
How is it possible?
It-
It's like these Western countries would be third world countries if it wasn't for the resources that they extract from Africa.
it's almost
Everybody knows it. So
I know,
so
that's my point.
what
They
do we
know
do about it?
and
We're like, how?
still allow it
I
to happen.
feel so I feel helpless.
No.
Hey, you want to hear something that'll cheer you up, though?
Yes.
Well, there's a French minister recently who was talking and said, if we don't intervene in Africa militarily in the next few years, then in a generation or two, there'll be Frenchmen going to Africa looking for jobs. And this is probably going to happen. Like, Europe's kind of fucked, because Europe isn't really independent. They're really under American control.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Americans have them cut off from Russia, but now they're losing their African colonies. And because, technically all these countries became independent like 50, 60 years ago, but they haven't really been until like very, very recently. And like right now we see this happening with the Sahel, so like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger.
Oh, the Sahel region. Yeah, with BRICS. I am rooting for BRICS so hard.
I'm not sure as far as is the Sahel region like a part of BRICS? Not quite yet, but maybe that's
The Sahel region is like from the west to the east. It kind of goes like this or something. I could try to Google it or whatever, but BRICS doesn't necessarily mean the Sahel region, because there's some ECOWAS people in some countries in ECOWAS that are still like in that area.
Yeah,
ECOWAS is like a puppet.
Well, yeah, and Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso left ECOWAS, and they've started their own.
They joined BRICS, I think.
I think it's
the
African Economic. I forget exactly what it's called.
Sorry. The president of ECOWAS is the Nigerian president, and Nigeria has always been a puppet for America.
Yeah.
So ECOWAS, I just don't even. That's like the Black Caucus to me. I don't trust them. I don't want to have anything to do with you. You are not real. I'm hoping BRICS is real.
Yeah, well,
Right.
it's not maybe a communist thing, but BRICS definitely seems to be like a break from this
I hope so.
imperialism. This multipolar idea seems to be, if you think like you try and reduce the idea of multipolarism, is it reduce to imperialism or not? Because I don't think it does. I think it would be more of an anti-imperialist way of doing economics, basically, right?
Or
That's just a
what?
guess.
One thing I can say about BRICS and just the development of the rest of the world outside the West in general is it gives the Africans a lot more options to trade with. And so the like African countries don't get taken advantage nearly as much. And it is like pretty sad because like a lot of people in the West, they kind of have this idea that Africa before was just a bunch of mud huts and that there's nothing really of value there, which can be further from the truth because like pre 1500, most of Africa was pretty much as developed as Europe. And
I
then we can
mean,
get,
oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. This is why education is important. They they had us in America believing that all of Africa is like uh, people so poor, flies are flying around their eyes, and like, and Africa is so farthest from that truth. Even the way they created the map of the world, they made Africa
Yeah,
look small, and Africa's ginormous. But it's like all this propaganda to make us not believe in the reality of the situation. And the reality is that human beings started in Africa, and everything in this entire fucking world is spawned by Africa.
Africa is your mom. Don't
Africa, your mama and your damn daddy.
yeah.
I would say Mother Africa because I'm afraid to sound cringy, but yeah, like it's just odd being there. Like I don't want to be one of those people. I don't know. You see a lot of like NGO people who kind of get a bit carried away when they're there, but actually, like a lot of the NGOs are actually like shipping out because a lot of countries are starting to get rid of them because they see that for what they are as a political organization. But just to swing back to, we were talking about the Sahel, and the Sahel is, yeah, they might even like form a confederation of Sahel states. And one thing that it just ties back to Rwanda, like the French will never forgive Rwanda, even if Macron did an apology tour to get Rwandese like mercenaries basically to go
And,
and save an oil project. But
and Ryan, the French will never forgive Haiti either.
they'll never forgive anyone who leaves the French sphere of influence unless they just stay like completely destroyed and completely in poverty, which is basically what they want to leave like that because I don't know, for the West, a lot of geopolitics is zero sum game. But so the French, they won't forgive Rwanda because they were the first country to leave the Francophone, which is like the French sphere of influence. They like kicked they kicked the French out. They closed their embassy overnight. Like I have friends who were in school like when this happened. They switched the language of instruction overnight from French to English, and so they've been getting away from the sphere of influence for a while, and a lot of the Sahel states, like they keep it more hush hush, but they've been sending generals to Rwanda because they want to, like Rwanda has a very, very elite military, and they're trying to like learn how to fight for themselves. And the Sahel states too, they're filled with Russian troops, and they're like more under Russian protection now. And they like the Rwandese and the Russians also fought alongside each other in Central African Republic under the invitation of the French government. So they kind of are aware of each other. But like it's funny because you see a lot of people in circles, they're like saying like, oh, who's the pro-Russian people? And like when there's that really weird coup attempt that I don't even want to get into, but like you saw some like white people were involved in this coup, like from America were involved in this coup attempt in Congo that no chance of succeeding. But you saw, like I saw people from similar circles saying like, Congo's a pro-Russian state. Like, no, it's not. It's they were offered Russian help back in March in the current rebellion. They refused it, and plus, the Americans and the French would never allow that to happen because they're supporting. Well, what the president of Rwanda at least said in a recent interview is like basically they're supporting Congo and giving into all their demands because they're afraid of losing them to the Russians and the Chinese. And the Chinese aren't happy either because the Congolese government has been renegotiating mining contracts. And so Chinese aren't the best in African countries, but
May I ask something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Because I've been very curious about like Chinese influence in Africa because they're like Chinese police stations and stuff in Africa, right? I like all throughout. Okay, China has a population problem. A way to solve that population problem is they sent a lot of people to Africa, and they're kind of like in control in a lot of different areas. And I always wondered about that, like how the hell, why? You know what I'm talking about, Brian?
Like, yeah, like see where I was at, there wasn't like too many Chinese. Like they're definitely there, but from what I've heard, like especially closer to the coast, the East African coast, there's places like in Uganda where you go, it's just Chinese script whenever you go somewhere. But the thing about China, though, like why they're more popular in Africa is because they build infrastructure, and a lot of it came out like China. They built all their infrastructure, and they had all these infrastructure companies that weren't needed as much anymore. So then they started the Belt and Road Initiative, and they're in Africa. They build a lot of roads. They build a lot of trains. And train tracks. They build a lot of just basic infrastructure. And I think it was the Kenyan president who said this, which is ironic because Kenya is very, very closely aligned with the West. But he said, like, okay, when the British come and visit me, they give me a lecture. When the Chinese come and visit me, I get a hospital or I get a new highway. And
yes, I get that and I understand that, but why do you have police stations? Like now you're going overboard. You're doing too fucking much.
They say that the Chinese have police stations in Canada too, so I kind of am curious about this claim here, because I know China, the kind of the general sense that we get is China's in Africa building things and they're not bombing anything. They're not involved in the killing. So as much as you want to grumble about China's controlling the economics of the Africans, that's what you're trying to do, the Americans, with bombing people, is it not? But they're doing it in a more peaceful way, so people want to be critical of that for what.
But can we also? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Finish your statement. Finish your statement. I'm sorry.
I was.
Okay. But can we also acknowledge that economic hitmen do exist?
Right.
So just because you look like you're trying to do something good for this region, in the end, you probably ain't.
Well, I'd say China, you have to remember, they really mostly don't do anything that doesn't ultimately benefit China at the end of the day, which is, you could call it selfish or you could just call that logical, right?
All I'm saying is I'm looking with one eye open.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of these places where Chinese use excessive force. Like I don't want to be justifying or anything, but it is important to mention a lot of these places are like pretty unstable, chaotic places. I mean, I know Rwanda, like they're very, very close with the Chinese government, and a couple of years ago that made big headlines that they sent a guy to jail for 25 years because he's beating his mine workers. So things are starting to change, but on another level, like on a cultural level, Chinese are not very popular in Africa. Like Americans tend to get along a lot better. Indians, it's a mix. Like sometimes they really integrate a lot. There's a lot of foreigners now coming to Africa, and it's not like just people colonizing, it's people trying to get like a share of prosperity. So you have a lot of like Indian companies into there. Like there's a massive amount of them, but also like someone who almost never gets mentioned is Arabs. Like there's a lot of Emiratis and Qataris. Like the Qataris, like they're building a massive airport in Rwanda. Like, and they're probably the closest ally Rwanda has. And
There's also a lot of African migrant workers that aren't talked about who go emigrate to the Middle East for their work. I was hearing a story about Africans brought in to do farm work for Israelis. That would be an interesting thing to get into one day. Sorry to interrupt.
And may I say this? Can you put up that Sean comment? Because I mean, it's something that should be said. China has forgiven debts. Russia has forgiven debts. Where, and Sean says, when has the West ever done that?
I would have maybe back thousands of years when they used to do jubilees. I don't think they do those anymore. So, but I don't even know if that was the West. Jubilees was like they used to forgive cyclically every I'm not sure how many years, but like after 50 or 75 years, there would be forgiveness of debts and stuff. But that's not really something that happens anymore. And I'm not sure if that was Europeans or more in the Middle East that they even did those. But you should look up the history of Jubilee.
So interesting. He said Jubilee.
Now it's something means different. It's like
it means something different to me right now. But I'm gonna have to look it up.
Do we lose you, Ryan?
it's just switching to my data.
Hi, Desert Mantis. Okay, Rondo says they're supposed to forgive debts every 7 years.
It used to be
that sounds like your credit score. How they forgive every 7 years, they'll wipe it off.
It was kind of like a religious thing too, and I think maybe with a more secular society, maybe that's partly why they don't do it anymore. But also with the rise of capitalism, I have to look into that before I speak on it. But it's an interesting topic.
Okay, that's what Rondo understands a jubilee is, that they forgive debts every 7 years. I mean, our credit scores do that every 7 years. You could knock it off.
But words change and stuff over time. It also means like the Queen of England has a jubilee. It's like celebrating a birthday kind of thing of the royal family of their reign. You know. But anyway, we're getting a bit on a tangent with this.
I'm sorry, Ryan. I just want to say thank you so much for coming and being a part of this, and your information, your wealth of knowledge. We're life learners over here.
Yeah, I feel like we could always have you back if you want, and we can
please
more to talk about, right?
Yeah, I'm more than willing to.
Please come back, because I think we learned a lot, and we have more questions and answers right about now, huh?
When things are just getting started in Africa, like really, the shit has only begun to hit the fan.
But just 1 second, I just don't want to leave it on like a really dark note, but I'll just say like, see, the thing is that Africa really is the future though, because Africa's the only continent with a like naturally growing population. And like a lot of in the places where things have stabilized a bit, like in the East African region, like most economies are growing at like between like 6 and 8%. The Rwandan economy is growing at like 7 to 10%, which is what the Chinese were growing at. So things are like changing extremely fast. Like, and that's just why the West is throwing a tantrum, because they view African leaders as children, and they don't like it when they stand up to them.
Well, they can never stand what they would look like for their children to grow up, so they want to keep them petulant children. Yeah.
Petulant children.
And they want to pretend like the older parent will never grow up and die one day, right? And that's what's happening to the colonizers. They're all getting so old and feeble. They can't control their legs or their brain or their thoughts, you know.
I just got my passport back today. I had to renew my passport. And so you have to mail in your passport, and they'll mail it back to you. And I was like, oh, let me look at the stamps. And I was just noticing all the stamps I have are. I, I'm like, why haven't I ever been to Africa? This is embarrassing. This is fucking embarrassing. I need to go to Africa.
Yeah, if you wanna like come chill in Kigali, let me know. Like Rwanda's a fucking beautiful place, extremely safe. I need to explore more too. I've only been to like that little region over there, but things are changing. Like I'm sure you'd love it.
I would absolutely love it. One of my friends. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, it'd be Africa trip. Sounds good.
Yeah. One of my friends in New York City, it was so like all out of the blue. She was like, fuck it, I'm going to Africa. And she's been there for about 5 years now. She refuses to come back to America. She's like, I'm good. I'm good over here. I love it.
Well, speaking of some, as Canadians, I haven't meant. I meant to ask you at some point, or whatever. Was it? You like the weather better over there? You're happy not to be dealing with Canadian winters anymore, living in Rwanda.
I'm like, honestly, yeah, the weather is a lot nicer because it's constantly like Canadian summer, but also it's I'm kind of fed up with what's going on in our society right now, and honestly, like
Who isn't?
Well, in Canada, it's like nobody wants to do anything at all about fixing any of our problems and dealing with our monarchy that should never have existed.
And
And
the United
nobody
States
can
of
justify
America as well.
But everyone's just believing that they can be disconnected from reality and still be a good person and like be neutral on a moving train and all that. So I agree with you. I'm very frustrated with what's going on over here.
I feel like, Ryan, like they have gotten us so used to being numb in our bodies that we're just on autopilot. And some of us are just like, nah, I don't want to be numb. I want to feel. And the only way you could do that is to have these discussions that we're having. I don't want to be numb. I want to feel.
And what I like most about going to Africa is it just feels like it's everything's a lot more natural. There's not like factory farmed food everywhere, but also I met a lot of people over there. I built a life over there. People are like extremely welcoming, and in Canada, I don't know. Like it's where I live, it isn't that bad because I live kind of in a more rural area. But when you go to the cities, like honestly, the thing that annoys me the most is that everyone is like trying to. I mean, I want to say this like in the most respectful way possible, but it's just like everyone is trying to like fix the world, but we're not fixing things that are like right in front of us.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Well, I've been criticized of this before in my personal life that I have too much of a focus on the big picture and not enough of an awareness of what to do in the small picture. And there is something to be said about the validity of that critique there, where if you want to change the world, you're not going to change it by talking about all these grand narratives about what you're going to do and then not even get started on any of it. Like,
Well, I feel like we're doing the best we can with what we have. Um, Independent media is so important. People like you, Ryan, and people like Michael, myself, Bad Cookies, um, Mastermind Hour, Better Half, Rondo, Sean, everybody in the chat, like we give each other information, and we're just trying to feed ourselves some knowledge so we can make better decisions and choices for ourselves, and we can be able to communicate well to people around us to change thoughts and minds. That's it. I mean, I don't know what else I could do. Shit. That's all I got.
Everyone wants to
And
say
Desert Man, it's you too.
you got to do something, right? But part of the reason why people are doing all the wrong things is because they're not talking about what needs to be done before they just go out and do stuff. So this is a big part of figuring out, like, our communication line of work is a big part of the revolutionary stuff, but it's not by any stretch like the whole process. So
Not by any stretch, but it's a start. I mean, you got to start somewhere.
yeah, so we appreciate you coming on. Is there any more final thoughts you might have, or we can keep it going a bit longer? We usually go 2 hours, but if you're got something you need to get to do.
I'm not in any kind of rush, but I'd just say yeah, like I feel like a lot of people, like especially in North America, because we're so isolated from the rest of the world, it's easy to forget that like we're entering into a period where like it's a totally new world. Like uh, after World War II, you know, everywhere else in the world was destroyed by colonialism or war, and so I feel like Americans just kind of got used to being top dog, but now we're going into like really new territory. So I just like being over there, seeing what's actually happening on the other side of things. I mean, big things are happening. Like this year was like 30 years since the Rwandan genocide, and or they officially call it genocide against the Tutsi. But it's been 30 years, and you see like you go there, and it's sometimes you walk around and you forget like anything ever happened. Like it's like
Hmm.
there's still poverty. It's still a very poor country, but I don't know. People seem to be pretty healthy. People seem to be like the younger people seem to be like decently happy and thriving a bit more.
Well, life bounces back, right? And from even the worst of the worst, it is amazing to see how miraculous that all of this trauma does somehow be healed, right?
Miss Samasha,
It,
can you
but
put
it's
that
great.
chat back up so I can read it for Ryan?
Which one?
I just um
Sorry,
you want
Ryan, I didn't mean to
no worries.
throw you off. Not that.
What?
Where you were thanking Ryan.
Oh.
Can you put that back up? I'm sorry, Ryan. I didn't mean to throw you off. Go ahead.
I'm trying to think about what I was gonna say.
Okay,
But
okay.
You guys maybe mute.
Okay, so this is the chat comment. It says, "We definitely love learning from people like you, Ryan. Thanks for sharing and giving us insight." I just wanted you to know that was being said about you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you guys and the circle of people. Like I've found like more with Michael. Like that's how we met. But it's been really nice seeing in Canada that things are starting to change and there's like people are starting to get fed up more and actually wanting to start to do stuff because for a long time, like I was in Rwanda when they cracked down on the trucker convoy. I remember it felt like it was a really weird feeling because then they were going around like saying they were going to cancel everyone's bank accounts and then all these leftists were saying that all these people standing up to the government were all like white supremacists or whatever bullshit. Even though I wasn't there, but I saw a bunch of the live streams because I was over there. And it was like very very multi ethnic. Like the
That was
only time.
it was
Well,
very scary. It was
there
very
was
scary.
there's a lot of American money and some right wing like media influence on the movement, but people want to try and conflate the movement with right wing people and Americans in general. Like there's
It
we're
was
gonna have to
very.
do a conversation
Sorry.
about that one day. Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry. I got excited. It was very scary to see that they could just freeze your goddamn bank account because you have a different opinion. Something is wrong with that, and they're trying to get rid of money, like paper money altogether, and make everything digital, once they do that, they own you.
Right. And then the leftists who are going around saying, oh, they may be freezing people's bank accounts, but if it's right-wing people, I'm kind of cool with it. Are you sure you're a leftist?
Are you sure?
You sound a little like a rightist, right?
Because as soon as you do it to them, they're gonna do it to you.
For sure.
So like censorship is wrong, because as soon as they censor you, then that means when you get in power, you can censor them. I mean, it's happening right now. Look at the Democrats. This is it is amazing what they're doing.
I mean,
Which
I thought
is
we were
kind of
supposed
crazy.
to.
Because,
I thought
sorry.
I was just saying. I thought some
Shut up.
hypocrisy was supposed to be a bad thing, right? But apparently, it's not what they're doing that upsets people. It's why they're doing it. It seems, right?
It's kind of it's. Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Ryan.
So I was just gonna say it's kind of like I lived in like Rwanda for the bulk of the time. I was in Africa for a couple of years, and it's a very authoritarian country. But like over there, at least like if you don't get involved in things you're not supposed to be involved in, they leave you alone. But the thing about North America, like in Canada in particular, and blue states, is like it feels like they want to control how you think. Like it, they want to control like every aspect of your life and how you behave down to like the letter. It's really really unnerving because I don't want to get like too controversial, but like it's like up here we like
Excuse me, please do.
okay.
That's what we do here. We get controversial.
It's just gonna say like when I go to like English Canada, or I was in Europe a couple weeks ago on my way back, and you see like pride flags absolutely everywhere. And at this point, I don't think.
Ryan, can I just stop you for 1 second? Only because Jacqueline is in the UK. I've been looking for her because Jacqueline, you told me to wear the shirt, so I wanted to show you. I got your shirt on, girl. So it's my Occupy Wall Street shirt. Can you see it? All right. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ryan. I just needed to. She's going to bed, so I just needed to do that before she went to sleep.
No worries.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I really do appreciate you guys for having me on. It like actually I was a bit nervous at first, but it feels good to actually be on and just with like people I can actually be comfortable with. And yeah, just as to say, it's like there's like pride flags absolutely everywhere when you go back in the West now. And like I don't even really think it has anything really to do with like gay rights anymore. I think it's like about pushing an ideology. Because like
people, you'd have to leave the West to understand how everywhere, how much it's infiltrated every little space. I think.
Yeah. Can we like can we make this a topic, because I'm very gay. Right. And I would love to talk about this.
No way of knowing. Yes. Anyway.
I mean, I'm not very gay. I mean, I'll take a. Okay.
Gay enough.
Tosh was like, "Don't say it." I'm queer. Whatever. But I'd love to have this conversation because it's getting out of hand.
Well, it's like a cultural appropriation sort of thing. Like, if the neoliberal people want to use LGBT people like sheepskin, kind of creepy, I would say. Maybe it needs to be addressed.
It's like in Canada, I find like the like LGBTQ community is the only people who are still like by and large supporting the Liberal Party, and so they've just kind of like super fed their base, but all like in a virtue signaling way, and like look also like I was in East Africa for a while, and that's a very very homophobic region. Kigali is actually, Rwanda is the only place you can actually legally be gay. So it's like become like a little bit of a gay haven, but they kind of tell you like just don't organize politically, and you can do whatever you want behind closed doors. And that's, I know it's like in the West, it's not really a good way. It doesn't sound very good. But then you look at the neighbors too, like that's why Uganda isn't pro-America anymore, because they passed an anti-gay law that the president blocked for like 10 years, but he got kind of sick and tired of being pushed on it, so he let it pass. And yeah, I don't support that at all. But like I also see like this is what happens when you import culture wars over, because it to be fair, it didn't start with the gay movement. It started with evangelical Christians going to Uganda because they couldn't preach their homophobia in America anymore, and it just
That's funny.
but
I'm sorry, I bust out laughing because they go over there and they're like, oh, I gotta preach my like. Okay, that's a whole nother story.
So then that's funny when people want to blame Africans for their homophobia when a lot of it seems rooted in the European culture of Christianity.
And then the crazy part is they'll go over there, and then how many of them have gotten arrested for pedophilia, for rope with the A? Like it's like they go over there to take advantage of people. In the name of Jesus.
uh, I met a sex pat not long ago. It actually made me really really sick to my stomach. But that's not an on-air conversation. I
We
think
can
that
move off of it, away from that's the
We can talk about that
conversation.
next time. Yes, the missionaries abroad. Yes, Desert Mantis, the missionaries. And thank you, Rondo. My queerness is not performative. It's not. But the alphabet mob is getting a little bit out of hand. They're getting out of pocket.
Well,
And
it's like
I want to talk about it.
it's like vote stacking is what I was thinking. Like each letter of the alphabet is not as big of a group as when they combine, like a Megatron robot or whatever those. So then they're a bigger
sorry.
they're a bigger force, right? Sorry, a bigger voting block, right? But
You know how I am about when somebody tells a joke when I'm drinking my wine. I don't want to spit it out. Okay, put that up, Tosh. Agreed, Rondo. But just like all groups, infiltration is real. They infiltrate every group.
Black Lives
Every
Matter,
group.
It don't fucking matter.
Black
what
Lives
group.
Matter. It don't matter what the movement is. You best believe the CIA is about and the FBI about to be up in there somewhere.
They can have an anti-killing little kids bill or killing little kids group. They gonna infiltrate that shit with a badass kid shooting everybody. I'm just saying, every group is susceptible to it.
yeah,
Yep.
Right,
we all
so
want
I
to be
don't
a
think-
hero. Never meet your hero.
I don't think.
Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
So I was just gonna say, I don't think it's really my space to talk about this much. But I watched an interview like a while ago with an FBI informant, and he was saying about how in the 70s, like in the middle of COINTELPRO, they were like a lot of these like informants. They knew Black culture better than the Black community themselves. They'd like study every aspect of it to really take people out. And like I don't know, I looked into this a lot because like a lot of like people who really influenced my political leanings. So like going past like of course like the early Black Panthers, but also like Paul Robeson is someone like I like really looked up to and tried to like take influence from. But they were good at it. Like I have to give the CIA and the FBI props. Like they're good at what they do. Like in
They
a
are
really
very good at what they do.
Never underestimate your enemy. Right.
Them deceitful bastards. Okay, I'm sorry.
But
They
I
are
don't know.
very
I
good
think
at what they do.
I don't know.
Sean?
I think it's easier to infiltrate the LGBTQ community though, because like I think some people are just a bit tolerant to a fault. But I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Good point.
I okay. Maybe we should we save that as a different topic for you to come on as a guest again? I really want to talk about the LGBTQI plus A
Spirit,
LMNOP.
spirit stuff. I don't know what else is in there now.
Yeah.
There's like
Have you
100 genders we were saying the other day.
have you heard Trudeau?
107.
Yeah.
I said, what? How many?
Like Trudeau messed up one time when he was saying it. Now, like it's so funny how he's like the 2S LGBTQ plus community. Like he has it practiced out. Like, but
Yeah, I tend to stop at the T, even though that's a little rude, I guess, to the cube, and the plus. But I get tired of speaking letters after a while.
I don't know. I say LGBTQ, but like some maybe you can say plus. But
IA plus. Because
IA.
intersex is a thing because some people are born with both genitalia. Like even if they might have a vagina on the outside, but they have testicles inside their body, or vice versa.
Yeah.
That's hermaphrodite.
Yeah.
That's what they used to call them, and then they changed it to intersex or whatever. And then asexual. I mean, I guess there are asexual people. I don't know how because I like to.
See, I kind of wonder about that.
I was about to say it.
Is it maybe a little bit of
I like
repression and trauma maybe makes people turned off in such a way as to not be a healthy kind of thing, and then they've come to a mindset where they believe that it's a normal, healthy thing. I feel, but that's.
I wonder about that because, like, you know how like some people who are assaulted at a young age, they like get really big, physically get fatter on purpose to turn people off away from them because of the trauma they experience, stuff like that. I mean, that happens. I'm not saying every big person is like that. I'm just saying that is a common thing that happens with people who were assaulted at a young age. So then I wonder, okay, so asexual people, like, why you don't want to fuck?
Because they don't got time for that.
I think it's also maybe
they ain't got time for that.
it might be a little bit of postmodernism too, where this identity politics has been like they're trying to redefine like what objective truth is to such a obsessive degree where they're allowing everything into truth, and so now you're not allowed to say that somebody's maybe just confused because everyone has this lived experience that people are trying to make out to be just as important as everyone else's, when some of our lived experience is confusion and misperception and stuff. So
I want to just I want to say that Sean says I say human, like no alphabets. I say human. He said, I don't care what you identify as. If you are a comrade, I'll call you a friend. I love that.
well said.
Hey, friend.
Thank you, comrade.
Thank you, comrade. Thank you, comrade. I still want to talk about it though, because
yeah, but we'll have to save it because we're gonna get into it right now. So maybe we'll have to wrap up a bit.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up and we'll come back and discuss that because that's funny business. Okay, Toss Mitt, stop talking about octopus murders.
I can't
So
help
this
it.
is so
It's tied to
okay.
everything.
So, I know it is, but this is going to be discussed at the 10 Rabbit podcast with Bad Cookies and Mastermind.
Yes, I guess that's the
good. On Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Central. Correct? That's right?
Well, I was a little confused about the start date. So
Mastermind is laughing. It was
maybe
yesterday.
Mastermind's in the chat. You can let us know what time exactly is the Tin Rabbit podcast on Wednesday, because I thought it might have been 7 p.m.
No, 6 p.m. 6 p.m.
6 p.m. Central, so that would be 7 p.m. Eastern for me.
Correct.
I don't know what everybody else's time zone is. I hate time zones. Nice if we could all be on the same page. But.
The 10, like a tin foil, and then the White Rabbit, 10 Rabbit podcast. So go subscribe Don't forget to subscribe to Abby Do.
And
And
don't
don't
forget
forget
about
to
civilian
subscribe to
discourse on Monday.
Civilian Discourse on Monday.
Yeah.
And don't forget to subscribe to Nahilo Nordstrom on YouTube as well.
Yeah, I've been putting up our old noteworthy episodes one at a time whenever I have time. So if you want to look back at our catalog, I'll be trying to get it up there. So
Mastermind said they're moving to the Chin Rabbit is moving to a different time slot. So we'll figure that out. We'll let you know.
and there's the
It's
rest of the
cool.
independent media, INN, Hard Lens Media. Thanks for tuning in, Kit. I'm probably not still here, but appreciate
Lizard.
all your work that he does. You know,
Now we're just being silly. Look at Rondo laughing. Now we're just being goddamn silly.
and
Okay, so
maybe Ryan, I'm not sure how much, but I met Future Homestead more in the Midwestern Marks community, so I'm not sure how much you watch those guys as well, but we'll give a shout out to them. Don't forget about them. So
They're cool.
yeah, they're great, right?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. No, they're absolute shit. No, I'm joking. Yeah, they're great.
they're absolute shit.
Quote me on that.
I mean, they have their own flaws as human beings, of course, but they're growing in their own way, and I think that they're like I learned a lot from actual Marxism from them, so I feel it's important to respect that and acknowledge that. So they just recently done some interviews of people who are purged from the CPUSA. So if anyone's curious about what's been going on with the Communist Party in the States, you might want to check out Midwestern Marks.
I do just want to say, like, yeah, joking before, like, Midwestern Marks, I think, is probably the best of the, like, the newer groups coming about, because, like, let's be honest, like, all the parties and stuff from, like, more than 5-10 years ago are either, like, honeypots from the government or cults. You need to pick your poison.
My only thing about Midwestern Marks is they seem to be a little influenced by like Haas and Hinkle, but we can talk about that another time. So we can't get into everything. So
yeah, mixed feelings about that. Like a lot of good stuff coming from like their people, but yeah, the inbred people can sometimes be a headache.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's so much I want to talk about with Brian.
But we'll have to put a pin in it. Then.
I know we have to put a pin in it. There's so much I want to say. Okay, can I just say this real quick? So today I was sitting outside just chilling, listening to gospel music. Now I am not a religious person. I don't like none of that. I feel like they're cultish behavior or whatever, but I grew up in a Baptist church, and can't nobody move you and make you feel the way a Black Baptist church choir can make you feel. And I was just like, oh, I just kind of miss it, but I don't like it.
Yeah, one thing I don't miss
so conflicting.
About the white people church that I went to, the Lutheran church, is the singing. They really don't know how to have any passion for their hymns there.
I grew up like a mix of like Anglican and evangelical. Honestly, sometimes I kind of preferred the like more traditional stuff. But yeah, I will give you like, yeah, Black Southern Baptist churches have the best gospel music. There's a reason that like most of like the most well-known music in the world comes from there. So like, yeah, I listen to like way too much soul music. So pretty much.
So maybe next time I'm gonna play a song or something. Just one or two.
We can get a couple copyright strikes, right? We're fresh.
We're not getting paid for this.
No.
So it don't really matter that much.
Yeah, I feel like monetizing may even kind of like ruin a little bit of what we're trying to do and who we're trying to be and stuff. But
the magic.
Yeah. But I've also been trying too hard to be anti-capitalist for a long time, so I got to figure a balance there. So.
Hi, John. He always comes late, but he's always right on time.
Can I just say though, like I really appreciate you guys having me on, and yeah, you guys are pretty cool. Like I'm really happy that I can talk about this kind of stuff with people like who I actually feel comfortable with. Because I'm sure you guys have met some people in the States that like it just becomes a headache. But I really appreciate you guys.
Well, I appreciate that you feel that we are the cool people and not the aggravating ones, right? So thank you.
But like the people who are just trying to backstab you or get a gotcha like
Well, we know
24/7.
those. Our
The
channel,
infrared.
our channel is a little bit existing the way that it is because there's been a bit of backstabbing going on. But we don't need to.
Yes, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
And I just want to say thank you to Mastermind. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Better Half, and thank you, Bad Cookies, because I kind of went off yesterday, and y'all were very kind and gracious to me.
No,
I just said we
got
are
here.
we are becoming a family, all of
Yeah.
us, slowly but surely.
I'm slow to trust, but once I do feel like I got that family where I'm not going nowhere. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in Kinyarwanda, they say "tuli kumwe," like we're together.
Wonderful.
Maybe we should end on that then.
Yep. So I will let me just set this up so I could play music for us to go out.
Yeah, if you guys want
Oh,
to reach out
Sean.
to me like off air, feel free to. I'll be on. It's just my phone's about to die, so I'm gonna drop. But
Yep.
yeah, I really
We're about to
appreciate you guys.
go. We
Yeah.
appreciate you too. Thank you so much for your time
Yeah.
and
Thank you
your
for sharing
the
your
information.
insight. Yeah. Thank you. We'll talk
No,
some more. So
no worries, and yeah, appreciate you guys. Thanks.
have a good one.
Bye, Ryan. And then for the rest of you guys in here, we're just gonna say good night. We love you. We'll see you on Monday for civilians discourse. Wednesday for the 10 Rabbit, and then back next week for Noteworthy.
Yeah. We'll see
How
what we
about
got.
that?
We'll see what we can cook up in the meantime.
Here we go.
Thanks, guys.